The 9,840th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda of this meeting is the situation in the Middle East. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rules 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representatives of Israel, Lebanon, and the Syrian Arab Republic to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. In accordance with Rules 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the following briefers to participate in this meeting. Monsieur Jean-Pierre Lacroix, Under Secretary General for Peace Operations, and Major General Patrick Gauchat, Head of Mission and Chief of Staff of the United Nations Truce Supervision Organization. It is so decided. Security Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda. I now give the floor to Mr. Jean-Pierre Lacroix.
Mr. President, members of the Security Council, I thank you for the opportunity to brief on the situation with respect to UNIFIL. I will commence with that brief on UNIFIL, and after this briefing, I believe General Gauchat will brief on UNDOF. Mr. President, as I briefed you earlier this week, on the 13th of January, the cessation of hostilities between Lebanon and Israel, while fragile, continues to hold. During the ongoing visit to Lebanon of the United Nations Secretary General, I had the opportunity to visit the UNIFIL area of operation earlier today with the Secretary General, of course, and we saw firsthand the situation on the ground. We also met with the Lebanese Armed Forces and with the caretaker Prime Minister in Beirut. From what I observed and based on what our interlocutors shared, the Lebanese authorities are committed to upholding their commitments under the cessation of hostilities and Resolution 1701. And I reiterate, the United Nations, including, of course, UNIFIL, is absolutely committed to supporting the parties in this regard. The Lebanese Armed Forces have deployed to 93 locations south of the Litani River as of 15th of January, compared with an estimated 10 locations on 27 November. UNIFIL has supported the Lebanese army in its deployment to many of these locations. As part of a plan to deploy an additional 6,000 troops south of the Litani, the Lebanese Armed Forces have recently deployed 262 newly recruited personnel to the South Litani sector, while another 673 recruits are undergoing training, and an additional 600 individuals are undergoing pre-recruitment screening. I acknowledge the efforts of the Military Technical Committee with the participation of several true contributing countries, which is also supporting the Lebanese Armed Forces in its recruitment and deployment efforts. To facilitate closer coordination with the Lebanese Armed Forces, UNIFIL has stationed a liaison officer at the LAF South Litani sector headquarters. With additional capabilities in the south and the renewed commitment from the Lebanese Armed Forces to fulfill their obligation under Resolution 1701, we expect further improvement in the collaboration with UNIFIL moving forward. We are encouraged to hear that a plan for a sequence withdrawal of the IDF and deployment of the Lebanese Armed Forces was presented at the meeting of the cessation of hostilities mechanism on the 6th of January. with 10 days until the end of the stated 60-day period for the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanon. However, Israeli demolition of tunnels, buildings, and agricultural land continue. Some airstrikes have also been reported, as have ongoing violations of Lebanese airspace. In addition, UNIFIL continues to detect trajectories of projectile fired from south to north of the Blue Line, although at a much lower level compared to before 27 November. UNIFIL has only detected 3 trajectories fired from north to south of the Blue Line since 27 November, and none since the 2nd of December. Noting that the Israel Defense Forces has stated that its actions are targeting Hezbollah assets and personnel, the continued presence of the Israeli Defense Forces in Lebanon is a violation of Resolution 1701. We urge the Israeli Defense Forces to withdraw from Lebanese territory and certainly by the end of the period envisaged in the announcement of the cessation of hostilities. The last year has clearly demonstrated the significant presence of unauthorized armed personnel, assets and weapons related to Hezbollah and other non-state armed groups south of the Litani in blatant violation of Resolution 1701. Encouragingly, the Lebanese armed forces have shown increased resolve in dealing with these in recent weeks. The mission has itself located 116 caches of weapons and ammunition, including rocket-propelled grenade launchers, rockets, anti-tank mines, and rifles. It has also observed some potential tunnel and Hezbollah sites. In all these instances, UNIFIL has informed the Lebanese armed forces for their appropriate action. It is vital that the Lebanese authorities continue to actively fulfill their commitment under the cessation of hostilities agreement and Resolution 1701. The Secretary General will, of course, underscore this message in his meetings with Lebanon's newly elected president, Speaker of the Parliament, and designate Prime Minister in Beirut tomorrow. At the same time, UNIFIL is adjusting its posture and operational activities to support the cessation of hostilities in line with its mandate under Resolution 1701. And we certainly hope that with the new political dynamics, the new political setup in Lebanon, more space and political support will be forthcoming to UNIFIL as we move forward for the force to fully fulfill its mandate. The mission is working with United Nations headquarters and troop contributing countries to deploy strengthened capacities in the areas of mine clearance, unexploded ordnance disposal, and engineering to clear roads and facilitate a return to full patrolling and monitoring functions across the area of operations. Meanwhile, UNIFIL is stepping up its operational activities in areas where the security situation allows. These include areas further north of the Blue Line in Sector West. UNIFIL is now conducting an average of 50 operational activities and 28 logistic activities per day, compared with just 16 per day in total before 27 November. And UNIFIL would further strengthen and expand its operations. The mission will also seek to utilize technology to enhance its monitoring capacities along the Blue Line and throughout its area of operation. The acceptance by the parties of the use of technology in this regard will be testament to their continued commitment to uphold the cessation of hostilities and take real steps towards the full implementation of Resolution 1701. Furthermore, UNIFIL is continuously developing and fine-tuning its public messages to address mis- and disinformation and to bolster public understanding of its mandated function as part of an increasingly robust strategic communication strategy. Mr. President, UNIFIL monitors and reports on violations of Resolution 1701, and we will continue to report on such violation to this Council. With respect to the mechanism chaired by the United States with the participation of France, we urge the parties to utilize this forum as a means to resolve outstanding issues through coordination rather than unilateral action. In consultation with the parties, the US and France, UNIFIL is sharing information related to violations of Resolution 1701 with the mechanism with the consent of the parties. Critical to supporting the full implementation of Resolution 1701 is the mission's unrestricted freedom of movement and full access throughout its area of operations. Currently, 7 weeks since the cessation of hostilities came into effect, most contingents often remain confined to base and on occasion must seek shelter in bunkers due in particular to nearby IDF military activity or IDF advisory for UNIFIL to take shelter for their safety and security. A notable example of this occurred on 6th of January when UNIFIL personnel at Nakura headquarters took shelter for around 3 hours early morning while the IDF conducted demolitions nearby. That afternoon, the IDF commenced its withdrawal from locations around Nakura, coinciding with the meeting of the mechanism by UNIFIL, the afternoon of the 6th of January. UNIFIL's operational activities are further constrained through the presence of unexploded ordnance, IDF roadblocks at various locations and in the area of operation, and interference from local individuals. The mission has protested all restrictions of movement to the parties, and we will underscore these messages in our meetings with Lebanese officials this week. Despite these challenges, the mission is increasing the number and intensity of its operation. As the IDF has been replying to few, if not very few, of the mission's requests for deconfliction, the mission has adjusted to a notification system for critical operational and logistics movement. The mission continues to engage with the Israel Defense Forces to remove level 1, that is stay in base restrictions, so that it can return to level 1, normal activity, in all locations where the IDF is no longer present. Mr. President, while challenges remain, there is reason for optimism, coupled with strong determination that there will be no return to the past. Confidence in security and stability along the Blue Line is necessary for the communities of southern Lebanon and northern Israel. The ongoing returns of residents to southern Lebanon will continue as Israeli forces withdraw and as reconstruction efforts gather speed. And we note that Israel has also presented a plan for the return of its residents to communities close to the Blue Line in March 2025. The election of a new president in Lebanon, as well as the designation of a prime minister tasked with forming a new government, are very important steps towards the strengthening of state institutions and the extension of state authorities throughout all of Lebanon's territory. In this regard, unequivocal political and material support from the Lebanese authorities for the strengthened deployment of the Lebanese armed forces south of the Litani River will be vital. Their ongoing support to UNIFIL actions will also be crucial. That is the support of the Lebanese authorities, the new Lebanese authorities. At the same time, we encourage renewed support from the international community for these efforts. To those member states contributing troops to UNIFIL and UNSO Observer Group Lebanon, we again extend our most sincere gratitude. Mr. President, members of the Security Council, General Gosha, who is serving temporarily as an acting head of mission and force commander of UNDOF until the deployment of Major General Anita Hasma in February, will now be briefing on the situation in the UNDOF area of operation. I would like to commend the efficiency and dedication of UNDOF and Observer Group Golan. The military and civilian personnel are serving in increasingly difficult circumstances. I thank you.
Monsieur Jean-Pierre Lacroix for his briefing. I now give the floor to Major General Patrick Gosha. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. President, member of the Security Council, I'm grateful for the opportunity to brief you on the situation in the UNDOF area of operations and the challenges faced by our peacekeepers on the Golan. The fall of the Assad government on 8 December has had an impact on the UNDOF area of operation and UNDOF activities. For example, the Syrian military is not represented anymore for the fortnightly inspections carried out through Observer Group Golan on the military position of the Syrian security forces, nor it is represented for discussions on presumed violations. While UNDOF has had continuous contact with Syrian interlocutors throughout these recent developments, liaison by UNDOF with Syria is impacted. The mission is working on establishing stable communication channels with the caretaker authorities. I note recent public statement by the caretaker authorities regarding their commitment to the 1974 agreement. UNDOF personnel supported by UNSO military observers serving in Observer Group Golan remain at all their positions occupied before December 2024. They continue to carry out their mandated activities, which include monitoring and observing the area of separation and the ceasefire lines, as well as patrolling the area of limitation. The Israeli Defense Forces remain present in the area of separation. The IDF continue to carry out construction work inside the area of separation with heavy equipment. They also set up communication equipment inside the area. The IDF has informed UNDOF that, I quote, it would enter the area of separation as a temporary defensive measure to prevent it from being occupied by non-state armed groups following the withdrawal of the Syrian authorities, end of quote. UNDOF has informed its Israeli counterparts that their presence and actions in the area of separation constitute a violation of the 1974 disengagement of force agreement, and UNDOF continues to reiterate in their ongoing contacts the need for full respect of the agreement. I must restate that the 1974 disengagement agreement between the State of Israel and the State of Syria remains valid. The full operational movement of UN personnel in the area of separation, including patrolling and logistical movement, has been impacted by the IDF presence and roadblock in the area. UNDOF used to conduct approximately 55 to 60 daily operational and essential logistical movement, and is currently restricted to approximately 10 essential logistical movement per day in this area of separation. But at the same time, UNDOF and Observer Group Golan could adapt their operations in the area of limitation on the Bravo side and increased the number of patrols from 10 to 40 per week. Also, UNDOF could neutralize a few unexploded ordnances that were found in public areas on the Bravo side, which represented a danger for the population. Residents in the area of separation have reached out to UNDOF to appeal for its assistance, to ask the IDF to leave their village centers and lift roadblocks impacting their agricultural works. They have protested that the IDF has disrupted their communities and expressed fear, reporting instances of damage and destruction allegedly by IDF battle tank to roads, water pumping stations, and solar panels. Some residents have also protested IDF searches in their villages, with some reporting arrests of their relatives. UNDOF is liaising with the Israeli authorities, including the IDF and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in this regard, and lately several discussions indicated positive exchanges and real progress. Mr. President, it is imperative that the UN peacekeepers are allowed to carry out their mandated task without obstruction. The mission has consistently called on all parties to maintain the ceasefire, refrain from any action in violation of the 1974 Agreement on Disengagement, and to respect UNDOF and its mandate. The mission maintains its liaison with the IDF to ensure that it continues to carry out its operational activities in a safe and secure manner without any hindrance to its freedom of movement to fully implement its mandate. There should be no military forces or activities in the area of separation other than UNDOF. It is imperative that all parties respect their obligation under the 1974 Disengagement of Force Agreement and uphold the terms of the agreement to preserve stability on the Golan. We count on the continued support of member states to ensure that UNDOF continues to have at its disposal all means and resources for effective and efficient level of operational activities. The mission needs to return to its full mandate implementation as prescribed in the Disengagement of Force Agreement signed by the parties and mandated under the Security Council Resolution 350 decided in 1974. Mr. President, let me conclude by extending once again our heartfelt condolences to the family of Brigadier General Amitabh Shah, who passed away on 23rd December last year during his tour of duty as Deputy Force Commander of UNDOF. I'm grateful to the countries providing military personnel to UNDOF and UNSO for their critical contributions, which are key factors in the force's ability to implement the mandate. I commend the efficiency and dedication of UNDOF and Observe Group Golan personnel, military and civilian. Thank you.
I thank Major General Patrick Gauchat for his statement. I now give the floor to those members of the Council who wish to make statements. And I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Господин председатель, благодарим заместителя генерального секретаря ООН Жана-Пьера Лакруа и главу органа по наблюдению за соблюдением условий перемирия генерала Патрика Гauchat за обстоятельные брифинги о ситуации в зоне ответственности голубых касок в Ливане и на голландских высотах. Признательны алжирскому председательству за организацию сегодняшнего заседания. На фоне обострения напряженности в регионе ключевое значение приобретает то, насколько государства-члены ООН и ее Совет Безопасности готовы встать на защиту миротворцев перед лицом прямых угроз своей безопасности и препятствий в исполнении мандата. Вот именно от этого и зависит будущее миротворчества. Ведь добиться доверия к нему без твердой поддержки со стороны всех членов Совета Безопасности попросту невозможно. Из выступления докладчиков очевидно, что временные силы ООН в Ливане и силы ООН по наблюдению за разъединением сталкиваются с одним и тем же вполне конкретным вызовом. Речь идет о своевольных действиях Израиля в зоне развертывания данных миссий, в нарушении профильных резолюций Совета Безопасности, Генеральной Ассамблеи ООН, а также международных договоренностей. В Ливане в ходе недавнего наземного вторжения подразделения армии обороны Израиля оккупировали часть территории к северу от Голубой линии, нападали на объекты СООН, в том числе с применением танков. Израильское военно-политическое руководство в разгар войны даже требовало убрать миротворческие силы из Южного Ливана в нарушение резолюций Совета 1701 и 2749. В чести миротворцев они не дрогнули перед лицом прямых угроз и не отступили ни на шаг. Убеждены, что такая твердая позиция, поддержанная членами Совета Безопасности, странами, поставщиками контингентов и секретариатом Всемирной организации, способствовала скорейшему заключению договоренности о прекращении огня в Ливане 26 ноября. К сожалению, в преддверии истечения 60-дневного срока соглашения по Ливану, о чем сообщают сами ООНовцы, многие положения документов пока далеки от реализации. По поступающей информации из Западного Иерусалима поступали сигналы о намерении сохранить контроль над 3 стратегическими высотами на юге Ливана. Израиль продолжает нарушать воздушное пространство, в том числе нанося произвольные авиаудары. Фиксируются израильские обстрелы в непосредственной близости от миротворцев. Особая озабоченность вызывают масштабные разрушения израильтянами гражданской инфраструктуры и жилого фонда, запреты на перемещение ливанцев и их возвращение домой. На фоне многочисленных нарушений договоренности о прекращении огня следует прояснить возможности по их предотвращению со стороны обновленного мониторингового механизма в Ливане, в состав которого входит ООН. Подтверждаем нашу поддержку инициативе алжирских друзей об отправке миссии Совета Безопасности в эту страну, в том числе для того, чтобы направить четкий сигнал в пользу сохранения режима прекращения огня. Еще более непредсказуемо складывается ситуация в районе разъединения. В Сирии израильтяне, воспользовавшись сменой власти в Дамаске, нанесли колоссальный ущерб военному потенциалу Сирии. Захватили более 500 квадратных километров земель в нарушение условий соглашения о разъединении сил от 1974 года, заняли буферную зону в районе Голан, сторону Браво, юго-восточный склон горы Хермон и продвинулись вглубь Сирии в провинции Кунейтра. Из Западного Иерусалима стали доноситься тревожные сигналы о том, что соглашение 1974 года более не имеет силы, а гору Хермон следует вернуть Израилю. В сложившихся условиях голубым каскам невозможно эффективно выполнять возложенные на них задачи. При этом новые сирийские власти подтвердили согласие на размещение миротворческих сил ООН в буферной зоне на Голландских высотах. Неизменную поддержку на словах и деле миротворцам оказывают и ливанские власти. Выражаем нашу полную поддержку СООНу и СООН, играющим ключевую роль в поддержании стабильности в регионе. И призываем все стороны к неукоснительному обеспечению безопасности голубых касок, а также к тому, чтобы воздерживаться от любых действий, ограничивающих их свободу передвижения и препятствующих выполнению ими мандата. Напоминаем, что, как подтверждено в принятом накануне заявлении представителя Совета Безопасности ООН по Ливану, миротворцы никогда не должны становиться целями атак. Господин председатель, полноценная работа в СООН и СООНР невозможна до тех пор, пока суверенитет и территориальная целостность обеих арабских республик подвергаются угрозам, а профильные резолюции Совета Безопасности и Генассамблеи ООН не выполняются. Это касается прежде всего Израиля, вторгшегося на территорию соседних арабских стран. Призываем Совет Безопасности однозначно встать на защиту этих принципов. Без их соблюдения стабилизация и оздоровление обстановки в регионе невозможна. Все эти проблемы возникли отнюдь не на пустом месте, а на фоне беспрецедентных военных операций Израиля, руководство которого заявляет о войне на 7 фронтах. Эти операции до последнего времени пользовались безоговорочной поддержкой военной и международно-политической со стороны Вашингтона, чей провальный курс лишь привел к тому кризисному положению, в котором сегодня находится весь регион Ближнего Востока, его мирные жители и работающие там миротворцы, продолжающие героически выполнять свой долг в соответствии с веренным им мандатом. Господин председатель, последнее развитие событий в зоне арабо-израильского конфликта дает повод для осторожного, сдержанного оптимизма. Большое значение в этой связи имеет полное и добросовестное выполнение договоренности о прекращении огня между Израилем и Ливаном, Израилем и Хамас. Ключевые элементы известны: остановка боевых действий, вывод израильских формирований, обеспечение беспрепятственного гуманитарного доступа и восстановление общепризнанных международно-правовых основ ближневосточного регулирования, закрепленных в резолюциях Совета Безопасности и Генеральной Ассамблеи ООН. Благодарю вас.
Representative of the Russian Federation, and now give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you. Thank you, Undersecretary General Lacroix and Major General Goshap, for your briefings today. UNIFIL, UNDOF, and UNSO maintain a critical role in upholding stability in the region. UNDOF remains a vital presence in the region and has an essential liaison function between the parties and with communities on the ground. Similarly, UNSO is essential to monitoring ceasefires, supervising armistice agreements, and preventing isolated incidents from escalating. UNIFIL has an important role to play in helping the Lebanese state move towards full implementation of Resolution 1701. The United States commends the more than 10,000 peacekeepers from over 50 countries serving with UNIFIL and over 1,200 peacekeepers serving with UNDOF. Their operating environment has been dynamic and at times volatile in recent months, and we thank the peacekeepers for their flexibility, resilience, and their commitment to remain in place and carry out their missions during this challenging period. As we discussed earlier this week, the United States remains committed to supporting Israel and Lebanon in efforts to implement the arrangement they reached on November 27 in order for civilians to safely return to their homes on both sides of the Blue Line. We reiterate our call on all parties to respect the safety and security of UNIFIL personnel and premises and avoid incidents that expose them to risk or harm. This is key to UNIFIL's ability to conduct patrols and provide this council with information regarding conduct inconsistent with UNSC Resolution 1701. The United States has consistently reaffirmed its support for Israel's ability to exercise its right of self-defense consistent with international law. It is critical that all groups be mindful of the need to establish stability in Syria. In that regard, we take note of comments by Hayat Tahrir Hashem that Syria should not pose a threat to any of its neighbors, and we hope to see further actions towards that end. We note with concern reports that a civilian was killed in an attack on the Bravo side of the area of limitation on January 15. To that end, we urge all parties in the area of limitation to fully use UNDOF's critical liaison function to avoid miscommunication, and we hope to see a reduction in clashes and the restoration of calm in the buffer zone. Ultimately, we want to see lasting stability between Israel and Syria and support all sides upholding the 1974 disengagement agreement, including on the terms of the buffer zone and the means for its enforcement. We reaffirm our support for the disengagement of forces agreement. Israel has made clear its intent to uphold the terms of the agreement as soon as conditions allow, and that its actions are temporary and limited to defend its borders. To that end, we hope to see a reduction in clashes and the restoration of calm in the buffer zone. We also state emphatically again that UN peacekeeping personnel and positions must never be the target of an attack. We condemn any deliberate attack against UN personnel and positions. The safety and security of peacekeeping personnel are of utmost importance. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the United Kingdom.
Thank you, President. And I start by thanking USG Lacroix and Major General Gauchat for their briefings. After over a year of conflict and suffering across the Middle East, we now stand at a moment of hope for the people of the region. With the Syrian people free from Assad's tyranny, political progress in Lebanon, and news that a ceasefire and hostage release deal have been finalised for Gaza, the UK will continue to work tirelessly to ensure we seize this opportunity and deliver much-needed peace. The past year has seen continuous and devastating violence across the Blue Line. We strongly believe that a ceasefire and lasting political solution are the only viable route to peace, stability and security for the Lebanese and Israeli people. As we approach the end of the 60-day ceasefire period, every effort must be made to continue the progress and avoid a return to conflict. Violations of the agreement will only bring us back to the brink, and we call on parties to uphold the commitments they agreed to. Against this backdrop, the UK commends UNIFIL for maintaining its visibility and operational activities in difficult circumstances. The UK will continue to support UNIFIL's essential role in maintaining calm along the Blue Line and enabling the enhanced LAF deployment to southern Lebanon, consistent with the ceasefire agreement and UNSCR 1701. We have consistently condemned attacks on UN peacekeepers. They must never be targeted. All parties have an obligation under international law to ensure the safety and security of UN peacekeeping personnel and premises. Turning to UNDOF, the UN Disengagement of Forces Agreement remains vital for stability at this pivotal moment for Syria and the wider region. Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity must be respected. This is more important than ever as Syria embarks on a political transition in pursuit of a more secure and peaceful future. The UK is clear that we expect Israel to adhere to their commitment that their presence in the area of separation is both limited and temporary. We call on Israel to lay out timelines for their withdrawal from the area of separation. Let me once again reiterate the UK's long-standing position that the Golan Heights are occupied territory and we do not recognise Israel's annexation. Finally, after months of despair, news of the agreement between Israel and Hamas offers much-needed hope. The hostages and their families have endured unimaginable agony, and the level of suffering in Gaza defies belief. This deal is the basis for progress to bring the hostages home, bring relief, reconstruction and hope to long-suffering civilians, and to achieve a long-awaited two-state solution with Palestinians and Israelis living in peace and security. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the United Kingdom for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of China.
主席，我要感谢拉克罗瓦副秘书长和戈沙少将的通报。近期，黎巴嫩和叙利亚局势发生动荡，联合国驻黎巴嫩临时部队和联合国脱离接触观察员部队的工作受到严重冲击，面临艰巨挑战。国际社会要凝聚共识，采取行动，支持两个特派团有效履职。我愿谈4点意见。第一，尊重特派团授权。联立部队和联托部队是安理会授权成立的特派团，为维护任务区地面局势的总体稳定发挥了重要作用。前段时期，联立部队按照授权履职遭到干扰，联托部队执行巡逻任务遭到限制。有关国家有义务执行安理会决议，立即解除所有限制措施，确保特派团的行动自由。第二，保护维和人员安全。前段时间，以色列国防军袭击联立部队的阵地和哨塔，造成联立部队人员受伤。联托部队营地也遭到无关人员的冲闯。我要重申，特派团不能成为军事行动的目标，任何蓄意攻击维和人员的行为都严重违反国际法，必须对上述行为进行调查追责。中方支持秘书处和特派团采取必要措施，增强态势感知、侦查监测和信息分析能力，提高应急处突水平。出兵国和出境国也要加强对维和人员的安保培训和能力建设。第三，尊重当事国主权。去年12月，以色列打着有限和临时性行动的旗号，在叙以军事隔离区部署部队，并持续至今，这不能成为新常态。国际社会公认戈兰地区是叙利亚备战领土，我们敦促以色列尊重叙利亚的主权、独立、统一和领土完整，履行安理会决议 和部队脱离接触协议，尽快从叙利亚领土撤离，停止采取导致局势复杂化的行动。第四，全力推动停火止战。中方欢迎离已达成临时停火谅解，但我们也关切地注意到，针对黎巴嫩的袭击仍在发生。1月15日，斡旋方宣布达成加沙停火协议，中方对此表示欢迎，衷心希望协议能够得到有效执行，实现加沙全面永久停火，为中东局势降温创造有利条件。但以色列方面尚未最终批准协议，而且以军在加沙的行动还在继续，又造成80多人的死亡。这些都表明黎以和加沙的局势仍十分脆弱。国际社会，特别是联合国安理会，应该保持团结，共同努力，推动停火协议得到执行，维护中东地区的和平稳定。最后，我愿借此机会向在动荡局势下坚守岗位的2个特派团的全体工作人员表示敬意，对他们为维护和平与安全所做的努力表示赞赏。中方愿同各方一道，继续坚定支持他们履职，为维护中东地区的和平与安全做出更大贡献。谢谢主席。
I thank the representative of China, and I now give the floor to the representative of Panama.
Señor presidente, agradecemos las intervenciones del subsecretario general Jean-Pierre Lacroix y Patrick Gauchard por sus exposiciones informativas. La situación actual en el Medio Oriente, particularmente en el Líbano y Siria, presenta una de las pruebas más desafiantes para nuestro compromiso colectivo con la paz y la seguridad internacionales, y exige nuestra atención más urgente y nuestras mejores capacidades diplomáticas. En este contexto, Líbano y Siria representan oportunidades donde los esfuerzos internacionales son esenciales para construir una paz duradera y garantizar la estabilidad regional. Las misiones de mantenimiento de la paz de las Naciones Unidas, que hoy son objeto de nuestro debate, continúan desempeñando un papel esencial en medio de circunstancias cada vez más complejas y enfrentan limitaciones significativas que deben ser abordadas con urgencia. La Fuerza Provisional de las Naciones Unidas en el Líbano ha desempeñado un papel vital en el monitoreo del cese de hostilidades y el apoyo al gobierno libanés en el ejercicio de su soberanía. Sin embargo, los últimos meses han sido testigos de crecientes restricciones a su libertad de movimiento y ataques directos contra su personal, lo que viola la resolución 1701 del 2006 y pone en riesgo no solo a los cascos azules, sino también la estabilidad de la región. El Consejo debe garantizar la implementación completa de las resoluciones 1701, 1559 y 1680, que subrayan la importancia de la soberanía, independencia política e integridad territorial del Líbano. En este marco, destacamos y esperamos se mantenga el acuerdo del cese de hostilidades del 26 de noviembre del 2024 entre Israel y el Líbano. No obstante, expresamos nuestra preocupación por las violaciones posteriores. La reciente formación de un nuevo gobierno marca un paso importante hacia la estabilidad política, después de meses de incertidumbre. Panamá felicita y desea los mejores días al presidente Joseph Aoun y al nuevo primer ministro Najib Mikati. Asimismo, reconocemos los esfuerzos que están liderando para restaurar la confianza de la población en las instituciones y fortalecer la gobernanza democrática en medio de una de las crisis más severas de la historia del país. Panamá reconoce el papel fundamental de las Fuerzas Armadas libanesas para el fortalecimiento de la seguridad nacional y su apoyo al mandato de la Fuerza Provisional de las Naciones Unidas en el Líbano. Señor presidente, procedo a referirme a UNDOF. La Fuerza de las Naciones Unidas de la observación de la separación desempeña un papel crucial en la supervisión del cese al fuego en los altos del Golán. Sin embargo, las recientes violaciones al Acuerdo de la Separación de 1974 han puesto en riesgo la estabilidad regional y la seguridad del personal de la ONU, limitando su capacidad para cumplir con su mandato. Es imperativo que este Consejo refuerce el apoyo a la misión. La crisis humanitaria en Siria continúa afectando a millones de personas, más de 6.7 millones de desplazados internos y 5.5 millones de refugiados enfrentan condiciones extremadamente difíciles, exacerbadas por la falta de acceso a servicios básicos como agua potable, alimentos y atención médica. Panamá subraya la necesidad de un acceso humanitario sin restricciones para garantizar que la asistencia llegue a quienes más lo necesitan. Es fundamental garantizar la protección de los civiles, especialmente de mujeres, niños y comunidades minoritarias, así como la preservación de las infraestructuras esenciales. La implementación del espíritu de la Resolución 2254 sigue siendo marco de referencia para una transición política inclusiva, liderada por los sirios y respaldada por la comunidad internacional. La fragmentación territorial y la influencia de actores externos dificultan esta transición. La comunidad internacional debe apoyar un proceso de reconciliación nacional, inclusivo y sostenible, que garantice la participación de todos los sectores de la sociedad siria. Colegas, los acontecimientos en el Líbano y Siria están intrínsecamente vinculados con otros conflictos regionales, incluida la guerra en Gaza, que exacerban la inestabilidad en la región. Estas dinámicas han intensificado las tensiones transfronterizas, aumentando el desplazamiento masivo de personas. Ante este panorama, es esencial una respuesta coordinada y decidida por parte de este Consejo. Asimismo, la cooperación entre la ONU y las organizaciones regionales como la Liga de Estados Árabes debe fortalecerse para garantizar soluciones sostenibles que respondan a las realidades complejas de esta región. En este contexto, instamos a todas las partes a respetar la inviolabilidad del personal y las instalaciones de la ONU. Reiteramos la necesidad de implementar plenamente las resoluciones pertinentes, incluida la 1701 para el Líbano y las 350 y 2254 para Siria, asegurando el cese de hostilidades y el apoyo a los procesos políticos y humanitarios. Respaldamos los esfuerzos para fortalecer las instituciones democráticas en el Líbano y promover un diálogo inclusivo en Siria como base para la paz duradera. Consideramos fundamental garantizar recursos financieros y logísticos adecuados para que UNIFIL y UNDOF puedan cumplir con sus mandatos de manera efectiva. Reafirmamos nuestro compromiso con la soberanía e integridad territorial del Líbano y de Siria, instando a todas las partes a respetar las fronteras internacionales ya reconocidas. Señor Presidente, la paz en el Medio Oriente es una responsabilidad colectiva de todos los Estados miembros de esta organización. Las misiones de UNIFIL y UNDOF son acciones tangibles de nuestro compromiso con la paz y la seguridad internacionales, y su éxito depende de nuestro apoyo continuo y decidido. En este sentido, Panamá reafirma su disposición de colaborar con todos los actores para garantizar que estas misiones sigan siendo un catalizador de estabilidad y esperanza en la región. Muchas gracias.
Representative of Panama for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank you as well as the Russian Federation for convening this important briefing. We thank Under-Secretary General Lacroix and Major General Gosha for their useful briefings. Mr. President, peacekeeping operations remain a cornerstone of the United Nations efforts to promote international peace and security. Nowhere is this more important than in today's Middle East. The mandates of UNDOF and UNIFIL are essential in ensuring stability, ensuring compliance with international agreements, and advancing the broader goal of sustainable peace. We are deeply concerned over the increasing threats faced by UNDOF and UNIFIL peacekeepers. We strongly condemn Israel's ongoing aggression in Syrian territories and the illegal incursion of Israeli defense forces in the separation areas established under the 1974 disengagement agreement. These actions constitute flagrant violations of the UN Charter and pose a grave threat to regional peace and stability and the territorial integrity of Syria. The 1974 disengagement agreement remains binding and must be upheld without exception. No force except UNDOF should have a military presence between the Alpha and Beta lines. Any unilateral actions that undermine this agreement are unacceptable. Similarly, Pakistan recognizes the essential role of UNIFIL in maintaining stability in southern Lebanon under Resolution 1701. Pakistan welcomes the cessation of hostilities arrangement between Lebanon and Israel of November 26, 2024. We support the new Lebanese leadership in their commitment to fulfill this arrangement, but we are deeply alarmed by the continued violations of the arrangement by the IDF, including airspace violations, airstrikes, and restrictions on UNIFIL's freedom of movement. Israel must adhere to the 60-day timeline stipulated in the arrangement and complete its withdrawal from southern Lebanon. Any delays or deviation from this timeline could jeopardize the fragile arrangement. Any security concerns should be promptly reported to the appropriate mechanisms, including UNIFIL, instead of resorting to unilateral violations of the arrangement and of Resolution 1701. Mr. President, the unrestricted freedom of movement of UNIFIL and full deployment of the Lebanese armed forces are crucial to achieve the security and stability as outlined in Resolution 1701. Pakistan urges the Security Council to ensure the full and unhindered implementation of the mandates of both UNDOF and UNIFIL. They must have the sustained political and operational backing of the Council. UNDOF and UNIFIL must be equipped with adequate resources and modern technologies to enhance their operational efficiency and to ensure the safety and security of peacekeepers. The safety and security of UN missions and UNDOF and UNIFIL peacekeepers is paramount. Those who attack UN peacekeepers must be held accountable. Mr. President, finally, UNDOF and UNIFIL are essential to preserve peace until the underlying disputes are resolved. The withdrawal of Israel from Lebanese and Syrian territories, including the Golan Heights, respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Lebanon and Syria, and the withdrawal of Israel from the occupied Palestinian territories are essential conditions for sustained peace and security in the region. Mr. President, we hope that the ceasefire in Gaza is real and that it will be a first step towards a comprehensive solution, including the two-state solution and the establishment of an independent and sovereign Palestinian state. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Korea.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also thank USG Lacroix and General Gosha for their briefing. To start, my delegation again warmly welcomes the agreement reached for a long-awaited ceasefire and release of hostages in Gaza. After 15 months of violence and instability, the realization of this ceasefire in Gaza rekindles hope, at long last, for a more peaceful year ahead for the Middle East. Yet, behind this long-awaited milestone lie the sacrifices of peacekeepers in the region, who have endured deliberate attacks as they valiantly upheld peace. Honoring their courage, let me make the following 3 points. First, we condemn, in the strongest possible terms, any attacks against peacekeepers, their installations, and facilities. Since last October, the Security Council has constantly received disturbing reports of dozens of deliberate assaults against peacekeepers in the UNIFIL's area of operation. Never before have we witnessed such an escalation of targeted violence against the Blue Helmet. As a troop contributing country, we are deeply alarmed that this may set a dangerous precedent. Let us be clear. There is no conceivable justification for deliberately attacking UN peacekeepers or missions, which may constitute a war crimes. Such actions run counter to international law and betray the trust the member states place in the UN. Second, even if the attack is not deliberate, all parties must refrain from taking actions that may risk the safety and security of peacekeepers. We are gravely concerned that such attacks have resulted in peacekeeper casualties and damage to UN facilities. Safeguarding peacekeepers is not only a matter of human life and dignity, but also central to the fulfillment of missions' mandates. In our capacity as both a troop contributor and a chair of the Security Council Working Group on Peacekeeping Operations, we have made it our top priority to address peacekeepers' safety and security. We look forward to the upcoming PKO Ministerial Preparatory Meeting co-hosted with Pakistan this April to ensure that UN peacekeepers can carry out their duties without fear of harm. Third, we urge all parties to prioritize creating a conducive environment to ensure the safety and security of UNIFIL and UNDOF peacekeepers. In Lebanon, ongoing ceasefire violations not only breach Security Council Resolution 1701, but also threaten to derail progress toward permanent peace across the Blue Line. Similarly, in Syria, Israel's military activities in the area of separation and beyond the Bravo Line remains concerning. Although Israel contends that its operations are temporary and defensive, ongoing expanded occupation casts serious doubts on such claims. Also worrisome is that Syrian communities in and around the area of separation are reportedly expressing their deep anxiety and concern over Israel's presence, which may lead to heightened tensions and instability in and around the area of UNDOF operation. We urge Israel to abide by its commitment to the 1974 disengagement agreement. We also call on all regional parties to open a new era of coexistence. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the Republic of Korea for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Sierra Leone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for convening this meeting at the request of the Russian Federation. I further thank Undersecretary General Jean-Pierre Lacroix and Major General Patrick Gauchat for the important briefings. Given the focus of the meeting, Sierra Leone at the outset expresses its condolences to the United Nations, the Republic of India, and the bereaved family on the passing of the late Brigadier General Amita Jha, Deputy Force Commander of the United Nations Disengagement Observer Force in December last year. Sierra Leone commends the efforts of UNDOF and the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon in carrying out their vital mandates in perilous conditions amidst escalating challenges in the Middle East. These missions remain essential to maintaining stability and preventing further escalation of tensions in their respective areas of operation in the Syrian Golan and in southern Lebanon. Sierra Leone views the cycle of violence and instability and uncertainty as a result of the recent political upheaval and military activities in Syria and Lebanon with grave concern, especially as it relates to the operations of UNDOF and UNIFIL. The situation in the Syrian Golan is one of continuous attacks on peacekeepers' position, leading to injuries in violation of the disengagement of forces agreement and undermining the operations of UNDOF to maintain peace in the Syrian Golan. UNDOF continues to play a crucial role in monitoring the ceasefire between Israel and Syria in the Golan Heights. However, we are deeply concerned about the increasing challenges faced by peacekeepers, including restrictions on their freedom of movement, heightened security risk, and the ongoing presence of IDF soldiers and other unauthorized actors within the area of separation. These obstacles not only hinder UNDOF's ability to carry out its mandate effectively, but also risk undermining the fragile calm in the region. We call on all parties to respect the 1974 disengagement agreement and provide full cooperation to ensure UNDOF's safety and operational effectiveness. Additionally, actions by both parties resulting in the use of heavy construction equipment and materials other than the designated separation features are grossly unacceptable and undermine the ceasefire. These physical structures have potentially restricted UNDOF's area of influence in terms of carrying out patrols and responding to other emergencies. So I don't commend the effort of UNDOF and the cooperation of other parties in facilitating the safe return of individuals from both sides and administration of medical services to the wounded in the spirit of upholding human dignity despite the prevailing security situation. These actions demonstrate enduring political and military cooperation to build trust and promote relationships between parties to the conflict. Mr. President, similarly in Lebanon, UNIFIL faces an increasingly precarious operating environment compounded by heightened tensions along the Blue Line and acts of hostility that jeopardizes peacekeepers' safety. The mission's ability to carry out its mandate under Security Council Resolution 1701 is further hampered by restricted access and misinformation, which threaten to erode trust with local communities. We urge all parties to fully respect UNIFIL's mandate, refrain from provocative actions, and work towards the full implementation of Resolution 1701 to ensure stability in southern Lebanon. Furthermore, it is concerning to note that on 4 January 2025, UNIFIL observed an IDF bulldozer destroying the Blue Barrel, marking the line of withdrawal between Lebanon and Israel in Laboneh, as well as an observation tower belonging to the Lebanese Armed Forces immediately beside the UNIFIL position there. We are of the view that the IDF's deliberate and direct destruction of both clearly marked identifiable UNIFIL property and infrastructure belonging to the Lebanese Armed Forces is a flagrant violation of Resolution 1701 and international law. We therefore call on all actors to avoid any action, including the destruction of civilian property and infrastructure, that could jeopardize the cessation of hostilities commitments. Notwithstanding these violations, we note that the Israel Defense Forces have commenced its withdrawal from areas around Nakora. We also note that even though the IDF is still present elsewhere in the UNIFIL area of operations, the preparations for its phased withdrawal, in parallel with the increased deployment of the Lebanese Armed Forces to southern Lebanon, is continuing. We commend UNIFIL for supporting the redeployment of Lebanese forces to positions in Nakora and Al-Asher before Israeli forces withdrew. It is our hope that the UN peacekeepers in southern Lebanon will continue to liaise and coordinate with both parties to deconflict and support the full implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701. We take note of the emergence of a new government in Lebanon and the caretaker government in Syria, and we believe that this development could have significant positive implications for the safety and security of UNIFIL and UNDOF peacekeepers, as well as the effective implementation of their mandate. Additionally, the cessation of hostilities and related commitment on a non-security arrangement and towards the implementation of UNSC 1701 between Israel and Lebanon is a welcome development and offers hope that the conflict in southern Lebanon can be resolved, and which in turn would facilitate the effective implementation of the mandate of UNIFIL. In this vein, we positively note the statement by the chairman of the Cessation of Hostilities Implementation Mechanism on 15th January 2025 that the Lebanese Armed Forces, and I quote, checkpoint and patrol operate effectively throughout southwest Lebanon, and the soldiers are dedicated to their mission as Lebanon's sole security guarantors. Their presence creates a sense of security and stability, which will be important for the civilians who will soon resume normal activities in the area. End of quote. UNIFIL and UNDOF are vital to preserving regional stability. We call on all stakeholders to uphold their commitment, provide unimpeded access to peacekeepers, and prioritize constructive dialogue to address underlying intentions. In this regard, this Council should not only prioritize actions that guarantee the safety of peacekeepers, but also facilitate the effective implementation of the mandate of the respective missions. Let us reaffirm our collective responsibility to support these missions, including through a visit to Lebanon, and ensure their safety, effectiveness, and ability to contribute to long-term peace in the region. In closing, Mr. President, we state our regret that in the conflicts in the Middle East and elsewhere, we note the disturbing disregard for international law, compliance, and application. This includes the prohibition of attacks against peacekeepers. Regrettably, the seeds of impunity, which has been sowed over time, are now gaining root through the entrenched, selective, and inconsistent application of international law, and sustained covert and overt acts to undermine accountability mechanisms. The issue of accountability for crimes against peacekeepers has, and from the outset, been related to their safety and security, and therefore must be prioritized by this Council. We therefore recall Security Council Resolution 2589, in which this Council called for a renewed focus on measures to bring to justice the perpetrators of all acts of violence against UN peacekeepers and personnel serving in peacekeeping operations. The Special Court for Sierra Leone was the first to convict for attacks against UN peacekeepers. We therefore condemn all acts of violence against UN personnel serving in peacekeeping operations. We urge for full respect for international law, applicable international obligations, as well as status of forces agreement and status of missions agreement between the United Nations and host state. I thank you.
The representative of Sierra Leone, and I now give the floor to the representative of Slovenia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to thank USG Lacroix and Major General Gosha for their briefings. Mr. President, this week has been marked by an important breakthrough. Filled with hope, we welcome the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, and we call for the full implementation of the agreement. After more than a year of suffering, this is a crucial step to pave the way for peace for Israelis and Palestinians, as well as for the people in the region. While witnessing changes in the region that give us hope, it is important to note that peace is fragile if commitments are not upheld. This is the moment for actors in the region to deliver on the promises made and agreements reached, whether recent or decades old. It is the moment for actors in the region to respect sovereignty and territorial integrity and to show restraint to prevent any further escalation. Mr. President, Slovenia underlines its strong support to the work of UNIFIL, UNDOF, and UNSO. Their presence is and must remain a factor of stability. The freedom of movement of personnel must be ensured, together with their safety and security, which remain an utmost priority. We are concerned over the challenging operational environment, including by some of the issues presented today. Firstly, we underline that there should be no military forces or activities in the area of separation overseen by UNDOF. All parties must uphold the terms of the 1974 Disengagement of Forces Agreement, maintain the ceasefire, and preserve stability on the Golan. We are therefore deeply alarmed by the presence and operations of Israeli forces, including the positioning on Syrian Mount Hermon and recent airstrikes. These are violations of the agreement. Slovenia reiterates its long-standing position that we do not recognize Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Secondly, we welcome the notable progress in Lebanon in the recent weeks, both on the security and political fronts. Therefore, it is all the more important that the international community shows strong support to these positive developments. In relation to the ceasefire agreement, it is crucial that the provisions of the agreement are fully upheld. This includes a timely and full withdrawal of the IDF and the deployment of Lebanese armed forces, which certainly needs bolstered assistance. UNIFIL plays an important supporting role, which we welcome. We are concerned about the violations that still persist and underline our call for the full implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701 without exceptions. We also underline that only positive trust-building measures and continuous steps to implement the ceasefire agreement in its entirety will ensure that hostilities do not resume and peace and stability prevail. I thank you.
The representative of Slovenia, and I give the floor to the representative of Somalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to thank the Russian Federation for calling to this meeting and express my sincere gratitude to Mr. Lacrosse and Major General Kajat for their comprehensive briefings on this pressing matter today. The situation in the region demands our immediate and focused attention. We face the sobering reality of a ceasefire agreement that stands at a critical juncture. The potential expiration of this ceasefire agreement and the ongoing violations by the IDF pose significant risks to regional stability and safety of civilian populations. I would like to raise the following 3 points. First, we are deeply concerned about the reports violations of IDF in Lebanon and Syria that undermine the very foundation of the UN Charter. This breaches ceasefire agreement in Lebanon and the 1974 disengagement agreement not only jeopardize fragile peace, but also threaten to spark a broader regional conflict. Each violation erodes the trust that is essential for a sustainable peace. We underscore the enduring significance of 1974 disengagement agreement. This foundational accord has served a crucial framework for stability in the region for nearly 5 decades. Additionally, Resolution 1701 remains a cornerstone of our approach to peace and security in the region, and its full implementation, along with other relevant Security Council resolutions, is imperative. We join the call for all parties to honor the obligations under these agreements and UN Security Council resolutions without exception or delay. Second, UNIFIL and UNDOF's role remain critical. Let me emphasize in the strongest terms possible, the safety and security of UN personnel must remain inviolable. I take this opportunity to pay tribute to their sacrifice and dedication in increasingly dangerous conditions. Their freedom of movement and their unembedded access to fulfill their mandates and responsibilities must be facilitated. Third, my delegation reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the sovereign and territorial integrity of both Lebanon and Syria. These principles are fundamental to the international law and regional stability. Any actions that compromise these sovereign rights, as well as ongoing political process, must be addressed promptly and decisively. In conclusion, as we move forward, we must strengthen our collective resolve to support UNDOF and UNIFIL in their crucial missions. Their presence serves as a vital mechanism for stability and conflict prevention. We reiterate our call upon all parties to facilitate their operations and respect their mandate. The enforcement of the ceasefire agreement, which expires in less than 2 weeks, is very critical. The complete and timely withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanon and Syrian territories must proceed in accordance with international law. The path to lasting peace requires unwavering commitment from all stakeholders. We must work together to prevent any escalation of tensions and create conditions conducive to dialogue and reconciliation and the success of a political process in Lebanon and Syria. We remain committed in that regard. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Somalia. I now give the floor to the representative of Greece.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to express my gratitude to the Under-Secretary General for Peace Operations, Mr. Jean-Pierre Lacroix, and the Head of Mission of UNSO, Major General Patrick Gauchat, for their valuable contributions to the issue at hand. Mr. President, in a world trapped in the vortex of regional tensions and increasing instability, peacekeeping missions often operate in areas where simply there is no peace to keep. They carry out the mandated task in a dangerous environment. They try their best to make a real difference in places where sometimes reality is beyond comprehension. Yet the ongoing tensions in the wider region of the Middle East have not left the blue helmets untouched. A deeply regretful fact if we take into account the loyalty, devotion and commitment of the peacekeepers in the restoration of peace and security both in Lebanon and Syria. Mr. President, on developments in Lebanon, the election of Mr. Joseph Aoun as a new president in combination with the designation of Nawaf Salam as a new prime minister present a unique opportunity to restore political unity in a country tormented by instability for years. In this moment of optimism, we commend today's visit to Lebanon of the Secretary General of the United Nations, a visit of solidarity with the Lebanese people, as the Secretary General himself referred to it. My country, Greece, stands ready to play a strong role in this new promising chapter. After all, our Prime Minister, Mr. Mitsotakis, was the first EU leader to visit Beirut since the November 26 ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah. It is beyond doubt that the ceasefire agreement has created a positive momentum, a spark of hope in overcoming 13 enormously difficult months of hostilities. Hence, the parties should not let this impetus slip through their fingers. UNIFIL, a peacekeeping mission which has been playing a constructive role in monitoring cessation of hostilities, is key for the full and sustainable implementation of the ceasefire and ultimately a long-lasting peace in the region. At the same time, the commitment of the Lebanese armed forces to extend the control over all Lebanese territory is remarkable. Greece stands ready to support the LAF in this prominent task in accordance with Security Council Resolution 1701 of 2006. However, the cooperation between the LAF and UNIFIL is equally important on the ways towards the restoration of peace. Mr. President, on the peacekeeping front slightly to the east of Lebanon, another peacekeeping mission holds the keys to the door of peace, UNDOF. In this case, the Blue Helmets have been trying to help both Syria and Israel to close the chapter of conflict for years, while maintaining the ceasefire and supervising the implementation of a disengagement agreement. At this point, it is worth mentioning that similar to the current positive dynamics in Lebanon, another important challenge is the achievement of an inclusive political transition in Syria. In this regard, Greece supports the unity, independence, territorial integrity and sovereignty of Syria, and the creation of conditions for an inclusive political transition, ensuring the protection of human rights and of members of religious and ethnic minorities. Meanwhile, Greece expresses full support to UNDOF and calls on all parties to respect the 1974 disengagement agreement. There is no question that in the wake of this momentum of developments in both countries, UNIFIL and UNDOF constitute a collective investment in regional peace, security and stability, an investment worth protecting, given that the peacekeepers remain steadily committed to the protection of civilians, even at the risk of their own lives. In this vein, Greece is deeply concerned over the targeting of UNIFIL and UNDOF in the last few months. In concluding, Mr. President, in line with its principles, Greece calls on all parties to refrain from any actions putting the Blue Helmets in danger. After all, when push comes to the shove, the peacekeeping missions represent a pillar of stability, unity and peace in a region lured in repeated sequences of instability, division and discord for decades. Even though the success is never guaranteed, they can achieve what others cannot, and they can deal with conflicts which others cannot or will not address. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Greece for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of France.
Monsieur le Président, je remercie Monsieur Lacroix et le général Gauchat pour leur présentation. Le Proche-Orient a connu un épisode de tension sans précédent depuis octobre 2023. Dans ce contexte, la France est engagée pour mettre fin à ce cycle de violence en lien avec ses partenaires. Au Liban, le long de la ligne bleue, la France a œuvré avec les États-Unis pour parvenir à l'accord de cessation des hostilités du 26 novembre 2024, posant un jalon important vers la mise en œuvre complète de la résolution 1701. Le président de la République, Emmanuel Macron, est aujourd'hui à Beyrouth à la rencontre du président Aoun et du Premier ministre désigné Salam pour leur témoigner du soutien de la France dans cette période cruciale. La situation reste fragile, mais la réduction des hostilités a été très significative. Les forces israéliennes ont entamé leur retrait en parallèle du déploiement des forces armées libanaises. Il est nécessaire que les délais impartis pour ces opérations, c'est-à-dire 60 jours, soient respectés. À terme, l'objectif reste la pleine mise en œuvre de la résolution 1701. À Gaza, la France n'a cessé d'œuvrer en faveur de la libération des otages et de l'obtention d'un cessez-le-feu. Nous saluons l'annonce d'un accord entre Israël et le Hamas, rendu possible grâce aux efforts des États-Unis, du Qatar et de l'Égypte. Il faut adopter dès à présent une approche de moyen et de long terme fondée sur la solution à deux États, seule à même de permettre l'édification d'un État pour les Palestiniens et de garantir la sécurité des Palestiniens et des Israéliens. La France coprésidera en juin 2025 avec l'Arabie saoudite une conférence internationale à New York pour la mise en place de la solution des deux États. Enfin, en Syrie, la chute du régime Assad offre de nombreux espoirs. La France appelle les autorités de fait à garantir que le processus de transition sera représentatif de toutes les composantes de la société syrienne et organisé dans l'esprit des grands principes établis par la résolution 2254. Dans ce contexte, il est important que la Syrie et Israël respectent l'accord sur le dégagement de 1974, ce qui implique pour Israël de se retirer de la zone de séparation prévue par cet accord et de cesser ses opérations sur le territoire syrien. Ces derniers mois, les trois opérations de maintien de la paix des Nations Unies, la FINUL, la FNUOD et l'ONUST, ont joué un rôle clé pour enrayer le cycle de violence et apaiser les tensions. La France salue le courage et le professionnalisme de leur personnel. Elle rend hommage aux pays contributeurs de troupes et aux casques bleus engagés sur le terrain, alors que nombre d'entre eux ont été blessés depuis octobre 2023. La France y prend toute sa part en déployant près de 700 soldats au sein de la FINUL. Nous venons de renforcer ses capacités en matière de génie afin qu'elle adapte au mieux ses activités. Il est crucial que ces trois opérations puissent mettre en œuvre leur mandat sans entrave et nous condamnons donc toutes les attaques visant les missions des Nations Unies, leur personnel et leurs locaux, ainsi que toute tentative de remettre en cause leur action. Il est important enfin que ces missions puissent adapter leurs activités en cas d'évolution de la situation. À la suite de l'accord de cessation des hostilités obtenu au Liban et de l'adoption hier de la déclaration présidentielle appuyant la contribution des Nations Unies à la mise en œuvre de l'accord, nous encourageons celle-ci à réfléchir aux adaptations nécessaires de la posture de la FINUL pour prendre en compte cette nouvelle situation dans le cadre de son mandat afin de faciliter la pleine mise en œuvre de la résolution 1701. Je vous remercie.
Of France, I now give the floor to the representative of Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to USG Lacroix and Major General Gouchat for your briefings. The Middle East stands on the cusp of monumental change. These past months have witnessed the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, cessation of hostilities between Lebanon and Israel, and the election of a new Lebanese president after more than 2 years of vacancy. Wednesday's ceasefire and hostage agreement also inspires hope for the people of Gaza and Israel. These are profound developments that can hopefully light a path towards a brighter future for Syria, Lebanon, and the broader region. In the wake of this sudden change, the need for stability has never been more apparent. For more than 50 years, UNDOF has monitored the disengagement zone. For almost 2 decades, UNIFIL has, under its current mandate, executed similar tasks around the blue line between Lebanon and Israel. These missions have been integral to bringing safety and certainty to peoples on both sides of the borders. Day in, day out, these peacekeepers risk their lives in support of peace. Some have made the ultimate sacrifice. In executing these tasks, we underline the duty of all actors to ensure the safety and security of peacekeeping personnel and premises in line with international law. Mr. President, there are 3 points I would like to focus on in this regard. First, UNDOF and UNIFIL contribute to the de-escalating of tension in the region. They are, and they will be, integral to securing a continued de-escalation going forward. However, to do this, the right conditions need to be in place. This means that peacekeepers must be granted unhindered freedom of movement and sufficient resources to be able to implement their mandates. It also means that patrols, logistic convoys, and resupply missions need to be able to move freely. Their positions will not be threatened, challenged, or dismantled by use of brute force. Politically, mission mandates must also be supported. Political rhetoric from any actor must not undermine the immunity and impartiality of peacekeepers. It is reassuring that the Council remains united in support of both UNDOF and UNIFIL. This support will remain vital as we work to achieve durable peace in the region. Second, Mr. President, on UNDOF. Denmark is proud to have contributed to UNSO and by extension to UNDOF for years. We believe that a new Syria can only emerge if the new authorities are able to secure the country's borders. Denmark reiterates that Israel must withdraw from the area of separation. UNDOF must be allowed to implement its mandate without interference, in line with Resolution 350. We remain concerned about reports of permanent Israeli structures in UNDOF's area of operation, IDF incursions further into Syrian territory, and rhetoric about moving Israeli settlers into occupied Syrian Golan. Such actions are prohibited under international law, including international humanitarian law. Third, Mr. President, Denmark remains fully committed to UNIFIL, the full implementation of Resolution 1701, and to making the ceasefire agreement permanent. UNIFIL must have political and operational support to effectively implement its mandate alongside the Lebanese armed forces after the withdrawal of all other armed actors from southern Lebanon. In time, we envisage the LAF taking over all tasks in southern Lebanon, and Denmark is proud to contribute financially to LAF in support of this crucial mission. Mr. President, in closing, to consolidate the positive change in the region, we need to build on a stable and trustworthy foundation. UNDOF and UNIFIL remain critical pillars in this foundation. We remain fully committed to ensuring that these two missions can implement their mandates by patrolling freely, maintaining internationally recognized borders, and providing credible information about the situation on the ground. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Denmark for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Guyana.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also thank USG Lacroix and Major General Gauchat for their briefings. As conflict proliferated across the Middle East over the past year, the essential roles played by the peacekeepers and civilian staff of the United Nations Disengagement Observer Force, UNDOF, and the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, could not have been more clearly demonstrated. In these times of heightened tensions, conflicts, and instability, UNDOF and UNIFIL continue to make invaluable contributions to de-escalation efforts and further continue to provide vital reporting to inform the decisions of this Council. I take this opportunity to reaffirm Guyana's heartfelt appreciation and support for their unwavering commitment to the execution of their respective mandates and for their unflinching bravery, even under increasingly dangerous circumstances and at great risk to their personal safety. President, the situation in the Golan Heights continues to present significant challenges to regional stability. It is described as a tense and unpredictable security situation, with many daily violations of the 1974 disengagement agreement, including the unauthorized installation of communications equipment and the prolonged and expanded presence of Israeli forces in the area of separation. Similarly, the complex dynamics affecting UNIFIL's role in maintaining peace in southern Lebanon requires sustained international cooperation and dialogue to achieve the urgent resolution of the challenges. The mission continues to encounter many obstacles in the implementation of its mandate. The security of Lebanon and its people is paramount, and there should be no deliberate undermining of their safety. We condemn all attacks on peacekeepers and call on all parties to abide by their obligations under international law, to refrain from any action that compromises the safety and security of UNIFIL personnel and premises, and to respect the freedom of movement of UNIFIL personnel. President, we must also underscore that while both UNDOF and UNIFIL have operated in an exemplary manner, we should not expect the missions to operate under these unstable and dangerous circumstances without the necessary resources to ensure the safety and security of their personnel. Guyana therefore urges this Council to provide robust support to the missions, both through the provision of the requisite resources and political backing to fulfill their important roles. The Council must also work to bring enduring peace to the region. Guyana remains deeply concerned about Israel's actions in both southern Lebanon and in the occupied Syrian Golan Heights, and its incursions into other areas of Syria. The many reported incidents of violations of the ceasefire agreement by the IDF, as well as the slow pace of the withdrawal of the IDF from southern Lebanon, puts at great risk the opportunity to achieve a sustained cessation of hostilities. Guyana reiterates its call for full respect for the provisions of the 1974 agreement on disengagement and for the parties to meet their obligations under the ceasefire agreement and Resolution 1701. Mr. President, as we focus on the situation in Lebanon and the occupied Syrian Golan, it is important to keep in view that the challenges in both contexts are directly linked to the situation in Palestine, engendered by Israel's ongoing brutal occupation. We are hopeful that the announcement of a ceasefire agreement in Gaza will pave the way for a reinvigoration of the Palestinian peace process, with progress towards the achievement of the two-state solution. This is critical for the people of Palestine and for the stability and peace of the entire Middle East, including Israel. We also note with optimism the significant progress made in Lebanon with the election of a president and a prime minister. This Council and other partners must support the government and people of Lebanon at this critical juncture as they work to set the country on a path of stability and prosperity. President, Guyana is steadfast in our commitment to the hard work that it will take to achieve peace across the Middle East region. We will continue to advocate for a stable, united, and prosperous future for the peoples of both Lebanon and Syria. Again, to the brave and dedicated peacekeepers and civilian staff of UNDOF and UNIFIL, our gratitude cannot be overstated. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Guyana for the statement. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the representative of Algeria. Dear colleagues, I would like to thank USG Jean-Pierre Lacroix and Major General Patrick Gauchat for their insightful briefings. UNDOF and UNIFIL operate in an extremely challenging context, facing multiple threats to their personnel and premises. The ongoing violations in the areas of operation of UNIFIL and UNDOF by the Israeli military forces are a source of grave concern. Algeria reaffirms its unwavering support for these missions and its strong commitment to ensuring the safety and security of peacekeepers. We reiterate that attacks against peacekeepers constitute war crimes. In this regard, we condemn in the strongest term the deliberate attacks by the Israeli occupying forces on UNIFIL personnel and the intentional destruction of their premises. We call for impartial and comprehensive investigations and the pursuit of full accountability. Furthermore, this very Council adopted Resolution 2766 almost 1 month ago. Renewing UNDORF mandate, Algeria called for its full implementation and endorses the resolution's key propositions, including the obligation to, first, fully respect the terms of the 1974 disengagement of force agreement. Second, exercise maximum restraint and prevent breaches of the ceasefire and of the area of separation. Third, ensure that there is no military activity of any kind in the area of separation. Israeli actions in the area of separation and its multiple incursion into Syrian territory pose a grave threat not only to Syria, which is navigating in a very sensitive period, but also to regional and international peace and security. The Security Council must reaffirm its resolutions and act decisively to stop these actions. Dear colleagues, UNIFIL and UNDORF are mandated by this Council to monitor the ceasefire and to provide information on the ground. After the briefing made by Jean-Pierre Lacroix and Major General Patrick Bauchat, the situation is clear to all. It is now incumbent upon the Security Council to act. No one should be above the law, and accountability must be ensured. We firmly believe that the roles of UNIFIL and UNDORF are not intended to be permanent. Addressing the root causes of conflict in the region by ending the occupation of all Arab lands is essential for achieving a durable peace in the Middle East. This current cycle of violence has once again underscored an irrefutable truth: we cannot afford to address the region through piecemeal solutions. Its challenges are interconnected, and it is only through a holistic approach that we can hope to achieve genuine and lasting peace. We welcomed the ceasefire agreement announced Wednesday, which hopefully will bring an end to the devastating bloodshed in Gaza. While this development is welcome, let us be clear: it cannot and must not be our ultimate goal. This agreement must serve as a stepping stone toward a lasting and just solution. It must chart the course for the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with Al-Quds Sharif as its capital. Dear colleagues, in closing, Security Council resolution, including 242, 338, 497, and 1701, constitute the framework for a stable and peaceful Middle East. Our collective efforts should focus on accelerating their full implementation. The time for half measures has long passed. We can no longer afford to simply manage the conflict in the region. Let us engage resolutely together on the path toward a lasting and durable solution that brings peace and justice to the Middle East. I thank you. I resume my function as President of the Council. The Presidency gives the floor to the representative of Lebanon.
السيد الرئيس، في البداية وبما أنها المرة الأولى التي يتحدث فيها لبنان هذا الشهر في مجلس الأمن، اسمحوا لي أن أهنئكم على رئاستكم لأعمال المجلس وأن أشكركم على دعم الجزائر المتواصل للبنان. لطالما عودتنا الجزائر الشقيقة على وقوفها إلى جانبنا دفاعاً عن القضايا المحقة. كذلك أتقدم بالشكر من الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية على رئاستها الشهر الماضي. أشكر أيضاً روسيا على طلب عقد هذه الجلسة، كما ومقدمي الإحاطات وكيل الأمين العام لعمليات حفظ السلام السيد جان بيير لاكروا المتواجد حالياً في لبنان مع الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة السيد أنطونيو غوتيريش، وأنتهز هذه المناسبة للإعراب عن امتنان لبنان لهذه الزيارة الأممية التضامنية. كما أشكر اللواء باتريك غوشا. السيد الرئيس، نلتقي مطلع العام مع بزوغ فجر جديد على لبنان بانتخاب فخامة رئيس الجمهورية العماد جوزيف عون وتسمية القاضي نواف سلام لتأليف الحكومة. وقد أعطى هذا الاستحقاق الدستوري أملاً للبنانيين وخاصة للشابات والشباب بأن لبنان سينهض من جديد وبأن الغد بالتأكيد أفضل. وقد أكد فخامة الرئيس في خطاب القسم بصفته القائد الأعلى للقوات المسلحة ورئيس المجلس الأعلى للدفاع على حق الدولة في احتكار حمل السلاح. دولة تستثمر في جيشها لضبط الحدود وتثبيتها ومنع التهريب ومحاربة الإرهاب والحفاظ على وحدة الأراضي اللبنانية وتطبيق القرارات الدولية واحترام اتفاق الهدنة ومنع الاعتداءات الإسرائيلية على الأراضي اللبنانية. السيد الرئيس، يجدد لبنان التزامه وتمسكه بإعلان وقف الأعمال العدائية والالتزامات ذات الصلة بترتيبات الأمن المعززة تجاه تنفيذ قرار مجلس الأمن 1701، وقد اتخذ خطوات عملية تنفيذاً له. وتستكمل وحدات الجيش الانتشار في رأس الناقورة وصور وبلدات في القطاع الغربي بعد انسحاب إسرائيل منها، وتعمل على تعزيز التمركز وتأمين النقاط المهمة بالتنسيق مع قوة الأمم المتحدة في لبنان اليونيفيل واللجنة الخماسية للإشراف على إعلان وقف الأعمال العدائية. وفي هذا السياق تستمر الوحدات المختصة في إجراء المسح الهندسي بهدف إزالة الذخائر غير المنفجرة وفتح الطرقات وإزالة الركام. كذلك التحقت الدفعة الأولى من الجنود المتمرنين في الجيش ضمن إطار المرحلة الأولى من خطة تعزيز الوحدات العسكرية المنتشرة في الجنوب، التي تتضمن تطويع 6000 عنصر بهدف تطبيق القرار 1701 بكافة مندرجاته. وقد باشر المتطوعون متابعة الدورات التدريبية في القطع المختصة ليصار إلى توزيعهم على الوحدات. السيد الرئيس، في وقت أثبت لبنان التزامه بإعلان وقف الأعمال العدائية، ما فتئت إسرائيل تخرقه وبشكل متواصل، حيث بلغ عدد الاعتداءات الإسرائيلية على لبنان بين 27 تشرين الثاني و22 كانون الأول 2024 أكثر من 816 اعتداء بري وجوي. كما أقدمت إسرائيل في أكثر من مرة على تدمير البراميل التي تعلم الخط الأزرق، وآخرها في 4 كانون الثاني 2025. وقد قامت بالتاريخ نفسه بجرف برج مراقبة تابع للجيش اللبناني بجوار موقع لليونيفيل بانتهاك صارخ للقرار 1701. وتستمر إسرائيل في قصف القرى الحدودية اللبنانية وتفخيخ المنازل وتدمير الأحياء السكنية وقطع الطرقات في محاولة لعرقلة عودة النازحين اللبنانيين إلى ديارهم، مما يعطل بشكل مباشر عملية إعادة الأعمار. يحذر لبنان من أن هذه الخروقات والاعتداءات المتكررة على سيادته تمثل تهديداً خطيراً للجهود الدولية الرامية إلى تحقيق الأمن والاستقرار في المنطقة، وتقوض مساعي التهدئة وعودة الهدوء إلى الحدود. ويدعو لبنان مجلسكم الكريم، لا سيما الدول الراعية للإعلان، إلى اتخاذ موقف حازم وواضح إزاء الانتهاكات والخروقات الإسرائيلية المتكررة، وإلزام إسرائيل باحترام التزاماتها بموجب إعلان وقف الأعمال العدائية والقرارات الدولية ذات الصلة. كما يشدد لبنان على ضرورة احترام سيادته وسلامة أراضيه ضمن الحدود المعترف بها دولياً، وعلى ضرورة انسحاب إسرائيل من كافة الأراضي اللبنانية من دون تأخير، وضمن مهلة 60 يوماً التي نص عليها إعلان وقف الأعمال العدائية، مع تشديدنا على أن الجيش اللبناني أكد من جانبه على جهوزيته لإعادة الانتشار في القرى الجنوبية، وقد أثبت ذلك فعلاً. وقد شدد الأمين العام السيد غوتيريش اليوم من مقر اليونيفيل في الناقورة على أن استمرار احتلال القوات الإسرائيلية في منطقة عمليات اليونيفيل وتنفيذ عمليات عسكرية داخل الأراضي اللبنانية يشكلان انتهاكاً للقرار 1701 وخطراً مستمراً على سلامة وأمن عناصر اليونيفيل، ويجب أن يتوقف. السيد الرئيس، يعيد لبنان الإعراب عن امتنانه للدور الحيوي الذي لعبته الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية وفرنسا في رعاية إعلان وقف الأعمال العدائية، ويقدر جهود الأمم المتحدة ومجلس الأمن من خلال قوات اليونيفيل في دعم تنفيذ القرار 1701. كما يجدد لبنان شكره لقوات اليونيفيل، ويشدد على ضرورة احترام حرمة مواقعها وعناصرها. وفي هذا الصدد يدين الاعتداءات الإسرائيلية المتكررة على مواقع اليونيفيل وعناصرها، واستهداف إسرائيل المباشر المتعمد والمتكرر لمواقعها وتعريض قواتها للخطر. ويؤكد لبنان على أن لليونيفيل دور مهم خاصة في المرحلة المقبلة لتأكيد انسحاب الجيش الإسرائيلي ومراقبة الالتزام بوقف الأعمال العدائية دعماً لتحقيق استقرار مستدام على طول الحدود. ويشدد على أهمية التنسيق المتواصل والمستمر مع الجيش اللبناني. ختاماً السيد الرئيس، يتطلع لبنان إلى وقوف المجتمع الدولي إلى جانبه في هذه المرحلة الجديدة من تاريخه، ودعم المؤسسات والأجهزة الأمنية وعلى رأسها الجيش اللبناني وجهود إعادة الأعمار. فلبنان الذي عانى الكثير يستحق منكم كل الدعم. وشكراً السيد الرئيس.
The Presidency thanks the representative of Lebanon for the statement. The Presidency will now give the floor to the representative of Israel.
Israel has always stated, and I reaffirm here today, we will do everything we can to bring our people home. This unwavering commitment to our citizens remains at the heart of all that we do. Mr. President, for years, Israel has warned of the growing threats in our region, warnings about Hezbollah's buildup in southern Lebanon, and violations of the 1974 disengagement of forces agreement in Syria. For years, these warnings were dismissed. Today, we meet with some hope for progress. We must reflect on those ignored warnings and the heavy price they caused. Israel has consistently acted to protect its people and ensure stability, and will remain steadfast in this commitment. These letters, Mr. President, contain the evidence, the countless, hundreds of letters we wrote, warnings and detailed reports that Israel submitted about Hezbollah's buildup in southern Lebanon, as well as violations of the disengagement agreement in the area of separation with Syria. These letters are proof that we told you this would happen. These papers should have been calls to action, but instead they were ignored, left to gather dust. Only when Israel was forced to act did this council find its voice. When it did find its voice, it unfortunately still failed to condemn the terrorists targeting our civilians. For years, this council has heard warnings about the growing threat Hezbollah posed to Lebanon, Israel, and the region as a whole. We warned of their stockpiling of thousands of rockets and anti-tank missiles, the smuggling of advanced weapons from Iran, and the construction of thousands of tunnel shafts and hidden military networks. We exposed Hezbollah's transformation of southern Lebanon into a fortress of terror. Today, we stand in the aftermath of a historic turning point. Hassan Nasrallah is gone, as are several of his successors, and Hezbollah has suffered a decisive blow. A ceasefire is in place. Lebanon has managed to elect a new president, a significant step forward after years of political chaos. But let us not be mistaken. Quiet for peace. The scars of Hezbollah's aggression remain etched into the land and the lives of those who endured it. Over 22,000 rockets rained down on Israeli homes, displacing more than 63,000 civilians. Israel uncovered and dismantled over 10,000 explosive devices, 870 launchers, and 60,000 communication devices. Much of this infrastructure was built just meters from UNIFIL positions. It was not this council nor UNIFIL that confronted Hezbollah's terror network. It was Israel. Through our determination and resilience, we not only defended our people, but created an opportunity for Lebanon to reclaim its sovereignty. Dear colleagues, it is time for this Council to recognize what Israel's actions have achieved. By dismantling Hezbollah's terror infrastructure, we have given the Lebanese armed forces and the Lebanese government the breathing room to begin reclaiming their nation. This is a moment of opportunity, an opportunity to free Lebanon from being a failed state held hostage by a terrorist organization. But let me be clear, this opportunity will not last forever. Already, we see attempts by Hezbollah to rebuild. Weapons are being smuggled across the Syria-Lebanon border. Funds are being funneled to rearm Hezbollah. Hezbollah operatives remain active south of the Litani River in blatant violation of Resolution 1701. We will not allow history to repeat itself. This brings us to the situation in Syria. From September to November 2024 alone, there were hundreds of documented breaches of the 1974 Disengagement of Forces Agreement. Military positions have been established within the area of separation in blatant violation of the agreement. Armed individuals routinely infiltrate the Alpha Line and tamper with the land in Israeli territory. These activities are not hidden. They are visible and have been reported extensively to UNDOF. In response to the emerging situation in Syria, Israel has taken limited and temporary measures in strategic areas to neutralize immediate threats. These actions were not taken lightly, but they were necessary to protect our citizens and preventing armed groups from threatening Israeli territory. Israel remains committed to the framework of the disengagement agreement, including the principles regarding the area of separation. We maintain close coordination with UNDOF. And I want to remind you what happened on December 7, when our forces helped safeguard UNDOF forces from attacks. However, the ongoing violations undermine the fragile stability of the region. Israel recognizes the vital role of peacekeepers on the ground in maintaining stability and places the highest importance on their safety. But it is time to address the failures in their mandates, which have failed to prevent aggression. Peacekeeping mission must not just exist. You have a lot of troops, a lot of soldiers, a lot of money, but they are not there just to be there. They must be empowered to act decisively. They must succeed in their mission by actively enforcing mandates and holding violators accountable. The discovery of massive terrorist infrastructure during the conflict highlights years of operational failures. UNIFIL's modus operandi must change to effectively prevent further violations and ensure that Resolution 1701 is fully enforced. UNDOF must ensure that violations are documented transparently and acted upon. Distinguished Council members, Israel is committed to upholding international agreements, including the agreement of force, including the disengagement of forces agreement. But our commitment to these agreements must not be mistaken for weakness. We will act against any threat to our security. Israel will not allow security threats to take root on its borders, as Hamas and Hezbollah did. The international community must take concrete steps to prevent weapons smuggling and Hezbollah's military rebuilding efforts. Failure to act will only invite further instability. The Council must face reality. Israel's actions have prevented the collapse of order in southern Lebanon and the area of separation. By dismantling Hezbollah's terror networks and confronting threats in Syria, Israel has provided a chance for the international community to reclaim peace. But this state of affairs will not last forever. This Council must support the ceasefire agreements, Israel's actions, and the full implementation of Resolution 1701. To Lebanon's representative, I'm saying here, Israel has given you a chance to rebuild. Seize the moment, the opportunity to reclaim your sovereignty and secure a future free from terror. And to Lebanon's people, I'm saying Lebanon belongs to you, not to Iran. This is your moment to take back your country and move towards a brighter future. Dear colleagues, Israel has done its part. We are committed to the ceasefire understanding and the US-led mechanism, having submitted hundreds of reports of violations, including 168 major ones. However, the LAF's progress remains slow and must accelerate. If Hezbollah attempts to rebuild, Israel will act decisively. UNIFIL and UNDOF must learn from their past failures and ensure their mandates are robustly implemented. Mr. President, to conclude, the choice before this Council is clear. Will you stand by as Hezbollah regroups, as terror networks rebuild, and as history threatens to repeat itself, or will you act to ensure that Lebanon's future is one of peace and stability? Israel has shown what is possible when action replaces silence. The Council must follow that example. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Presidency thanks the representative of Israel for the statement. The Presidency will now give the floor to the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. أتوجه بالشكر لوكيل الأمين العام لعمليات حفظ السلام السيد جان بيير لاكروا على إحاطته، ونجدد له الإعراب عن دعمنا لجهوده وإدارته في النهوض بالولاية المناطة بهم. كما أرحب بمشاركة اللواء باتريك غوشا قائد الأونسو وقائد الأوندوف بالإنابة، ونشكره على إحاطته، ومن خلاله نتقدم بالتعازي للأوندوف ولدولة وأسرة نائب قائد القوى الراحل أميتاب جهة. سيد الرئيس، تؤكد سوريا على الدور الهام الذي تطلع به قوة الأمم المتحدة لمراقبة فض الاشتباك الأوندوف وهيئة الأمم المتحدة لمراقبة الهدنة الأونسو، وتجدد الإعراب عن التزامها بمواصلة دعم هاتين البعثتين وتقديم التسهيلات اللازمة لهما لتنفيذ ولايتيهما بالشكل المطلوب وضمان أمن وسلامة عناصرهما. في هذا الإطار نشيد بجهود قائد الأندوف المنتهية ولايته الفريق نيرمال سابا، ونرحب بتعيين اللواء أنيتا أسما على رأس القوة. إن بلاد سوريا تشدد على ضرورة عودة الأندوف بشكل فوري وغير مشروط إلى أماكن انتشارها، وتمكينها من النهوض بولايتها بالشكل المطلوب، ومواصلة مهامها في رصد وتوثيق الاعتداءات والخروقات الإسرائيلية المستمرة لاتفاق فض الاشتباك لعام 1974، سواء ما يتعلق منها بالغارات الإسرائيلية المتكررة على المناطق والبنى التحتية المدنية والخدمية والعسكرية السورية، أو بالتوغلات الإسرائيلية المستمرة منذ 8 من شهر كانون الأول ديسمبر الماضي في مساحات واسعة من جبل الشيخ ومحافظة القنيطرة والمناطق المحيطة بهما وصولا إلى محافظتي درعا وريف دمشق. إن تلك الممارسات الإسرائيلية هي كلها أعمال عدوانية موجهة ضد سيادة سوريا ووحدة وسلامة أراضيها وأمن شعبها، وتمثل انتهاكات للقانون الدولي وميثاق الأمم المتحدة وقرارات مجلس الأمن ذات الصلة، وفي مقدمتها القرارات 242 338 و497 والقرارات المتعلقة بالجولان السوري المحتل التي اعتمدتها الجمعية العامة الشهر الماضي. السيد الرئيس، لقد تجاوزت قوات الاحتلال الإسرائيلي خط وقف إطلاق النار ومنطقة الفصل والتحديد بعشرات الكيلومترات، واعتدت على المواطنين السوريين في المناطق التي دخلتها، وصادرت منازلهم وهجرت أعدادا كبيرة منهم، ودمرت بنى تحتية مدنية، وهي ممارسات عدوانية غير مقبولة ولا يمكن تبريرها أيا كانت الذرائع التي تسوقها سلطات الاحتلال، وهي تستوجب الإدانة من قبل مجلس الأمن والتحرك العاجل لإنهائها. في هذا السياق ترفض بلادي جملة وتفصيلا التصريحات الصادرة عن رئيس حكومة كيان الاحتلال الإسرائيلي، والتي زعم فيها أن اتفاق فض الاشتباك لعام 1974 قد انهار. وتؤيد سوريا ما جاء في رد قيادة الأوندوف على ذلك التصريح بأن اتفاق فض الاشتباك لا يزال ساري المفعول بغض النظر عن التغيرات في أنظمة وحكومات الأطراف، وهو ما تكفله القواعد المستقرة في القانون الدولي والأعراف الدولية. وتؤكد سوريا استعدادها لاتخاذ كل الإجراءات اللازمة لضمان مواصلة تطبيق الاتفاق. السيد الرئيس، تطالب سوريا مجلس الأمن بإلزام سلطات الاحتلال الإسرائيلي بالانسحاب الفوري وغير المشروط من المناطق التي توغلت بها مؤخرا في سوريا، واحترام اتفاق فض الاشتباك الذي أعلنت بلادي مرارا وتكرارا وآخرها يوم أمس استمرار التزامها به بشكل لا لبس فيه. وتجدد سوريا التأكيد على حقها الراسخ وغير القابل للتصرف في استعادة الجولان السوري المحتل كاملا وفقا لقرارات مجلس الأمن ذات الصلة، ورفضها للمحاولات الإسرائيلية الرامية لتكريس واقع احتلالي جديد. وهي تشكر الدول الأعضاء التي عبرت خلال هذه الجلسة عن مواقف داعمة للموقف السوري. وتبقى ولايتا الأندف والأنسو ضرورة وضمانا لصون السلم والأمن الإقليميين لحين تحقق الحل العادل والشامل والمستدام في المنطقة وانتهاء الاحتلال الإسرائيلي للجولان السوري وانسحاب قوات الاحتلال منه بشكل كامل وفقا لقرارات الشرعية الدولية. ختاما السيد الرئيس، تهنئ بلادي لبنان الشقيق بانتخاب العماد جوزيف عون رئيسا للجمهورية وتسمية القاضي نواف سلام رئيسا لمجلس الوزراء، ونتمنى للبنان وشعبه وقيادته كل الخير والرفاه والاستقرار. شكرا سيد الرئيس.
The presidency thanks the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic for the statement. The presidency the representative of Lebanon has asked for the floor to make a further statement. The presidency gives them the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be very brief. If Israel is concerned about the future of Lebanon and its people, it should start first by, 1, respecting its sovereignty and territorial integrity, 2, respecting and implementing 1701 and the arrangement of cessation of hostilities, 3, ceasing its violation against my country, 4, immediately withdraw from all our occupied land. I thank you, Mr. President.
The presidency thanks the representative of Lebanon for the statement. There is no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.